Hello everyone. So I'd like to begin by pointing out our standard down there at the bottom. Now you saw the standard when we were talking about GDP, and we are moving back to talk about these indicators of economic activity. More specifically in this video, we are going to talk about unemployment. Alright, so when we're talking about the business cycle, we kept mentioning economic activity. What is this economic activity? Well, there is no one indicator that is the single best measure of economic activity. However, along with GDP and inflation, unemployment is one of the most common and most heavily cited measures of economic activity. So I'm sure you guys have heard, if you watch the news, unemployment's at 11%, unemployment's at 8%, we have low unemployment, so on and so forth. So you often hear people reference the unemployment rate, and that is the percentage of the civilian labor force that is unemployed but is actively looking for work. So that's the key deal. So a child would not be counted in unemployment statistics. Retirees would not be counted in unemployment statistics. People who are on disability leave are not counted in unemployment statistics because they're not actively seeking work. Also, think about someone who's very wealthy and retires in like their 40s. They do not count in unemployment statistics. Also, people who may be on welfare and are not currently seeking work, they are not counted in unemployment statistics. So the only people who count in unemployment statistics are the people who say, crap, I don't have a job, but I am actively looking for a job, and as soon as someone hires me, yes, I will begin working. So unless you're actively looking for a job, you do not count unemployment statistics. Now, here's a graph I want to show you guys that measures unemployment over the course of time. Now, if you'll notice this gray area over here to the left, these are just estimated because honestly, before the 1940s, before the FDR, the New Deal, we did not have a very accurate system for measuring unemployment. So in about the early 1940s is when we started officially measuring unemployment. So you can see this ridiculously huge spike here when unemployment was at about 24-ish%, 22-ish%. That was obviously the Great Depression of the 1930s. Now, since that time, we have never had unemployment remotely that high. But over here, 2010, we're in 2015 now. In 2010, unemployment is on the way back up. What happened in 2008, 2009 class? We hit a recession. During times of recessions, unemployment generally starts to rise. Now, one thing I want to point out to you guys, when unemployment is at 10%, oh, that's 10%, that's such a low number. That's actually pretty darn bad. That means 1 out of every 10 people who are looking for a job cannot find one. Like in a classroom, that's 2 to 3 students who cannot find work, who are looking for work. Over the course of an entire year, that's a lot of lost wages and a lot of lost productivity. And think about the entire United States. In the entire United States, 10% unemployment is several million people. Alright, so our LAQ references 4 kinds of unemployment. So there are 4 kinds of unemployment, and some of them are worse than others, and some of them are expected, and some of them are not expected. So let's begin reviewing them one at a time. Cyclical unemployment. Cyclical, the root word is circle, so think about the business cycle. When I say cyclical unemployment, I want you to think about the business cycle. Cyclical unemployment is expected. We know it's coming because we have the business cycle. Macroeconomists have been aware of the business cycle for the past 200 years, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, during times of contraction/recessions, unemployment tends to go up. During times of expansion/inflations, when times are good, unemployment tends to go down. When during a time of expansion and inflation, businesses are hiring. People who want to work are able to find work. Next, structural unemployment. This is what affects a lot of you guys watching this video, high school economics students. So structural unemployment is unemployment caused by changes in the economy such as technological advances or discoveries of natural resources. In modern times, the most common example is technological advances. So structural unemployment results when workers are replaced by computers, capital, or other machines, or when cheaper natural resources are found elsewhere. And as I mentioned, this most often affects less skilled workers. For example, if you work at McDonald's in the drive-thru, 10 years ago, there used to be someone, a actual human being, who had to fill up all of the drink orders for the drive-thru. That human being is very expensive and very inefficient. The past decade or so, they have had that awesome automated machine you can see in window number 2 at the McDonald's drive-thru. That's an example of structural unemployment. Several hundred McDonald's employees, when McDonald's first bought those machines about a decade ago, several hundred people lost their jobs because of that one single machine. That's a sudden surge in the unemployment rate. All right, seasonal unemployment. This also is expected, and it does impact you guys. Unemployment caused by the weather. In general, during winter, depending on your occupation, unemployment may be higher if you are in the construction field or a farm worker. Now here in Florida, we don't really have real winters, but up north in the Midwest, there is not much construction going on during December, January, and February because the winter is so bad. Farmers, during the winter when crops are not growing, there's not much work for farmers to do. However, let's flip that coin and talk about the retail side of business. During the winter, companies such as Publix or companies such as, Walmart or JCPenney's, think about Christmas time shopping. When during the holiday season, there's generally a surge of employment from part-time laborers just to meet that short period high demand. So for example, if you work at Publix's busiest 2 months of the year, most profitable 2 months are November and December. What happens in November, December? Thanksgiving and Christmas. So if you are already working at Publix, chances are you're going to be getting more hours. In addition, Publix tends to hire a lot more people in October, expecting that influx of customers in November and December. Same thing, think about all these random stores in the mall. During the summer, the mall tends to be dead. But come Black Friday and December, the mall is the place to be because people are going crazy trying to buy stuff. When consumers go crazy trying to buy stuff, that's good for unemployment numbers because for a short period of time, people tend to get hired. So it depends on which side of the coin you're looking at. If you are looking at construction and farm workers, winter is bad for unemployment. But if you are looking at part-time laborers and low-skilled professions such as salespeople and cash registers and people, baggers at Publix, winter is a great time. And finally, we have frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is a necessary evil in our economy. I shouldn't call it evil, it's just a necessary component. So frictional is temporary. That is, let's say if I got fired. If you can't hear, that's me knocking on wood. Not that I'm superstitious. But if I got fired and and they just happened to measure unemployment the day after I got fired, I would count as being unemployed even if I were to get hired a week later. So frictional unemployment is that gap. You get fired, you get laid off, you voluntarily quit your job in search of another job. During that gap between job A and job B, you're technically counted as unemployed. So let's say that the Polk County School Board were to lay off several teachers because of a budget deficit. Well, if a unemployment statistics were to come out during that time period, that would count towards unemployment. However, we might all find a job a month later. Okay, so we've just talked about unemployment. What does full employment look like? If you were to think that full employment means every single person who wants a job can find a job, gets one, you are incorrect. Because a characteristic of America's mixed market economy of capitalism, some unemployment is inevitable. In fact, some employment is even healthy because it keeps wages higher. We're talking about competition and stuff there. So full employment is a condition of the economy when the unemployment rate is lower than a certain percentage established by economist studies. So, in general, when you hear presidents referencing we have full employment, our unemployment is low, the go-to statistic is about 5%. 10% unemployment is horrible. 5% unemployment is considered great. That 5 percentage points difference doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind, over the scope of the entire America's economy, that's several hundred thousand, if not a million people. So some unemployment is inevitable, and the magic number is 5%. 5% is considered full employment. So finally, unemployment along with all macroeconomic indicators, think about inflation and GDP, unemployment is really hard for poor statisticians and economists to measure. They get paid darn well for their efforts. I would encourage any of you all to go on to college and be an economist. We definitely need more. But it's really hard to do, because think about this. Unemployment is a measure of an entire nation's employment status. Have you ever been interviewed before or received a questionnaire about your employment status? I have not. Chances are you have not either. Well, there's about 350 million people in America, and that's a lot of people to survey. You obviously can't survey them all. So without getting into, statistics level class, those who are taking statistics, you may know the direction I could take this down. But survey results are imperfect because some people may be dishonest. You can think about the black market and underground economy. In other words, people who violate laws that to report earnings may be part of the, I guess you'd call it the black market underground economy. That skews statistics. People who avoid taxes, people who gamble, drug dealers, all of those are sources of income, but they skew unemployment numbers. In addition, it is hard to distinguish between people who are not working but not looking for work and people who are not working but are also looking for work. Unless you ask them directly, it's hard to get an accurate response. So measuring unemployment is a pain in the behind. Here's our LEQ review. There are 4 types of unemployment. Keep in mind, full employment is when unemployment is less than 5%, and unemployment is difficult to measure because there's so many darn people to ask. Thank you for watching the video. You guys have a good one.